Last week we studied about the fourth commandment. It's about the Sabbath day, the fourth commandment. And just like what we learned, we must know that the fourth commandment is as important as other commandments. It's the same as the first, the second, the third, fifth, and so on. All commandments of God are important. Okay? All commandments of God are equally important. So tonight's topic is about why Sunday instead of Sabbath. One of us actually asked me at the end of the session last week that if Sabbath is on Saturday, just like what we learned, why most Christians worship on Sunday? Very interesting question. Let's review a little bit of what we learned last week. Exodus chapter 20, verse 8 to 11. We're going to go quickly, and then we're going to talk about what the topic is tonight. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your town. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. If you attended our previous meeting last week, we have already learned this, and it was very clear, right, that God has set apart the seventh day, and it didn't start on Mount Sinai to Moses, but it started long ago at the creation week. This is Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, the creation week, right? God called the light day, and the darkness he called night, and there was evening and there was morning the first day. And you can find until the seventh day, right? On Genesis chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. However, I want to emphasize Genesis 1, verse 5, also because in here it says, there was evening and there was morning. That's why the day starts at night, according to the scriptures, and that's what the Jews do even up to this day. And we can see right here, this is the list of the days, right? In Genesis chapter 1, up to this day, all right? And we have the English versions, the English names, and we have the Hebrew names in the original Hebrew writing, and also the pronunciation as well. As we can see right here, if you see before here, the first day, Genesis chapter 1, verse 5, that one we call Echad, or one, right? But nowadays, it was changed to Rishon, meaning the first day. However, if you look at the Bible, the original Hebrew writing of Genesis chapter 1, second day, day 2, day 3, you can see there on the screen, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, nothing has changed. You can find Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom is day, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, Yom Ravi'i, Yom Kamishi, Yom Shishi, and the last one, the only day that has a name. And we already learned that last week, and the name is Shabbat, means stop working or rested. But the other days, no names, only first day, second day, third day, fourth day, and so on. We already learned that. So originally, no matter what happens, we always know that Sunday is the first day, Monday is the second day, and so on, up to Saturday is the seventh day. And we can see right here, Leviticus 23, verse 32, it is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and you must deny yourself. From the evening of the ninth day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe your Sabbath. Just like what I mentioned previously, that the day starts from the evening. And so the Sabbath starts from Friday evening. This is the biblical conclusion about the Sabbath. things that we learned last week, if you can remember. First, the Sabbath began in creation week and was given to human race, not only to the Jews. Pay attention to that. Not only to the Jews. And the first day is Sunday, as what we saw on the screen before. If the first day is Sunday, the seventh day, which is the Sabbath day, is Saturday. All right? I hope it's clear. And the day itself starts on Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. So now it's Saturday and the sun has already set. That means that now, at this particular moment, it's not Sabbath anymore because it's already Saturday night. It has shifted or changed into the first day of the week. The Sabbath has already been over because it was before when the sun down. And remember, we also learned that on that day, on the Sabbath day, we must have a sacred assembly where we get together to worship our Creator. Okay? It's pretty clear that we must have a sacred assembly. That's why the Jews, even the time of Jesus and the time of apostles, we have already learned together that they all went to the synagogues every Sabbath day. Okay? Let me emphasize that thing. Jesus and all the disciples and all the apostles, everyone went to the synagogue every Sabbath day. Okay? Last week we also had interesting chat about what to do on Sabbath. And if you can remember that we talk about other people because some people just go to the church for 2-3 hours and after that they can enjoy themselves, right? They can just go to play sports or maybe they can just go to the mall or do whatever they want. Only 2-3 hours in the church and then after that they have free time. But let's see what the Bible says. Isaiah 58 verse 13 and 14. If you keep your feet from breaking the Sabbath and from doing as you please on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight and the Lord's holy day honorable, and if you honor it by not going your own way and not doing as you please or speaking idle words. Okay, pay attention to that statement. Then you will find your joy in the Lord, and I will cause you to ride in triumph on the heights of the land and to feast on the inheritance of your father Jacob. Who said that? Was it Prophet Isaiah? No. The mouth of the Lord has spoken. So very interestingly, whereas some people, they just focus on going to the church for a few hours and after that they enjoy themselves. But we all know that Sabbath day is a special day. It's the Lord's holy day. And so right on that day, we cannot do everything our own way. We cannot do whatever pleases us. Instead, we have to do things that pleases our Father in heaven. We cannot even speak idle words. Okay? So all the secular things that we can do or we often do on any other days cannot be done on the Sabbath day. I hope that is clear for us so that now we know how to observe the Sabbath day or what to do on the Sabbath day. And we had some chat, right? Some conversation last week that we could just visit the sick because they need some hope. We can pray for them. We can go to the prison too. We can pray for the prisoners there, or we can talk about God. We can have a Bible discussion, or maybe just like this kind of fellowship. We can do anything as long as that is pleasing to God. And of course, when we worship Him in spirit and in truth, we can do all kind of those things. But we cannot do secular things, and we cannot have fun for our own selves. I hope that's clear. And then when we got into the conversation last week, And it is very true because her family actually has been doing that for so long. Okay. However, they did that and they are still doing that on Sunday. All right. They keep the Sunday holy, which means that on Sunday they cannot do other secular things. They do whatever religious, any good things on Sunday. And I said that your family have the spirit of keeping the Sabbath. However, we have to be honest to ourselves that something's wrong with that, which is the day itself. Let's go deeper, right? And here comes the question, the big question. Why then most Christians worship on Sunday instead of Sabbath? Why? If Sabbath is on Saturday, why then most Christians worship on Sunday instead of Sabbath? First, quantity doesn't determine the truth. Remember always, quantity or the number of people, you know, it doesn't determine the truth. Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. So it is very clear what Jesus said right here, that people who will go to heaven, was it the majority or minority? Minority. You can see right here, small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life. In fact, right now, if you look at the chart, Christianity, they are the biggest religion in the world. And if most Christians go to heaven, then what Jesus said in here is wrong. Okay? So let me make sure that everyone understands. Not because we are Christians, then we can automatically go to heaven. No. Only those who do the will of the Father in heaven. Only those who love God and who love Jesus Christ who can go to heaven. And so whatever God says, whatever Jesus says, and we listen to that, and we do everything wholeheartedly, and then we can have the hope to go to heaven. Otherwise, we cannot go to heaven. So quantity doesn't determine the truth. Second, not only quantity doesn't determine the truth, we have to test everything. And don't be biased. Okay? Let me tell you again, don't be biased. Be neutral. Be neutral. Not because my family come from the Sunday keeping background, it doesn't mean that what they say is right. I have to really check on my Bible and look at myself, okay, and look at it myself, whether what my parents, my grandparents teach me is according to the Bible or not. Because if what they say is not according to the Bible, then I got to choose. It's my call. I got to decide which one I should follow. So not because of my family background, or not because I cannot keep something, all right? Because, for example, my business demands me to lie to the customer, and so I have to lie. And then I keep doing that. And then as time passes by, I will look down on the commandment of God saying that I cannot lie to other people. And so I think that it's okay if I keep the other 9 commandments, but this commandment saying that I cannot lie to other people, I would just look down on that particular commandment. It's not like that. So we have to be honest to ourselves. If it is from God, that means the truth. If we cannot do that, that means that we are sinning, or we are doing that. We are doing something wrong, and of course we have to change. Again, we have to test everything and don't be biased. We have to be neutral. Once again, brother and sister, we have to be neutral, on the neutral ground, so that we can see we can see whether we have done what God says or not. And we have to investigate everything, listen, biblically, linguistically, and historically. Why biblically? Because the Bible is the words of God. Why linguistically? Because the Bible comes from the original writing, and the original writing is from the Hebrew language, Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, Koine Greek. Okay, so we have to see whether they have already translated into the right translation or not. Because as we all know, like for example, the Jehovah Witness, they have their own Bible, right? And so we have to see whether the translation is really according to original writing or not. That's why we have to investigate linguistically as well. And so, just like what I mentioned before and also last week, the original writing of the Genesis chapter 1, it says that the seventh day is Saturday and it is Sabbath day. And also, historically, it is very important for us to know from the history, because we have to learn from the history. And in fact, the Bible itself is a history book from God, so that we can know the history of mankind, how we started sinning, how we rebelled against God, the history of Israel as well. And we can learn lots of things from Israel because we are the modern Israelites, if you know what I'm saying. Here, Proverbs 14, verse 12. Why we have to check everything? Because there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. So we have to be very careful, my friend, right? Not because our parents say that and it is automatically true. We have to check. This is the scriptures, right? And we have to rely our understanding on the scriptures, on the Bible, not because the parents say that and it's automatically true, not because our pastors say that it's automatically true, not because I say that, okay? The parents, the pastor, and even me, who am I? You cannot just trust me. You have to read the Bible and check on your own whether I'm telling you the truth or not, because there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end, it leads to death. Acts 17, verse 11. This is very important too. Now the Berean Jews were of more noble character than those in Thessalonica, for they received the message with great eagerness. And what is it, brother and sister? Examine the scriptures every day to see if what Paul said was true. Now you can imagine, long ago, there were many Christians, right? And they were spread all around the countries, but the Berean Jews were different because they were of more noble character. Why? Because when they received the message, they tried to examine the scriptures and they want to see whether Paul was telling them the truth. Now you can imagine whatever the apostles say, even a man named Paul came to visit them and they still had to check whether Paul was telling them the truth or not. But what happened nowadays? We can see what's going on nowadays. We can see that people just accept everything what the pastors tell them without checking the Bible whether the pastor is telling them the truth or not. Sadly speaking, and that is the sad fact. People just accept whatever the pastors or the ministers or the priests or the clerics, the clergy, everyone, whatever they say, they will just believe without checking for real what the Bible really says. Now, John 8, verse 32. When we check the Bible, we know the truth. Jesus himself says, then you will know the truth and the truth will set you free. Free from what? Free from sin, free from ignorance, free from human tradition. That's what we cannot do, right? If they're all against God's works. Now let's go to the topic. History of Sunday observance, okay? I'm trying my best to make it clear and quick at the same time to all of us so that we can understand what is it all about. History of Sunday observance. The Roman Emperor Constantine died. He died in 337. A convert to Christianity introduced the first civil legislation concerning Sunday in 321, when he decreed that all work should cease on that day except that farmers could work if necessary. That law, aimed at providing time for worship, was followed later in the same century and in subsequent centuries by further restrictions on Sunday activities. What is the source? Online Encyclopedia Britannica. You can go to the website, and this website is pretty much neutral, right? It is on the neutral ground, so it doesn't belong to any religion, right? It's very neutral. And you can also try to find in the general encyclopedia, and you can check yourself the history of Sunday observance. This is what Emperor Constantine said on that particular day, March 7, 321, 17 centuries ago. This is what he said: on the venerable day of the sun. Pay attention, brother and sister. On the venerable day of the sun, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agriculture may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not suitable for grain sowing or for vine planting, lest by neglecting the proper moment for such operations, the bounty of heaven should be lost. So he strongly recommended everyone to stop working. You got to stop working on the day of the sun. We have to stop working, and we have to keep it holy. I just want to make sure that everybody knows who Emperor Constantine is. Do you know the story of the Roman Emperor Constantine? You have to know this first so that we can go further. Constantine was the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. Make sure you know that. And if you don't know that, don't just believe me. After this session, you can go, or right now while I'm talking to you, you can just try to Google it. Is it true or not? Constantine was the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. To tell you the truth, as the background of the story, long ago, even the time of Apostle Paul, if you can find in the Bible, Apostle Paul was he was a Roman citizen, and according to the law, Roman citizens could not be penalized in terms of death. They could not be given death penalty. However, we know Nero, right? Emperor Nero, he executed Paul. We're talking about the apostle, and then he died in the hands of Rome, right? So in other words, many Christians were suffering in times of Rome, right? Because ancient Romans, they hate Christians because the Christians, they don't want to worship the emperor, because ancient Romans also worship the emperor, and Christians, they don't want to do that. They refused to do that because Christians, together with the Jews, they only worship the unseen God, right? And we all know Christians also worship Jesus, right? And so we all know that Christians were under persecution, right? Until the time of Emperor Constantine. What did Constantine do? He changed his faith into Christianity. And if you try to find who Constantine was and what he did, most of his lifetime, he actually worshipped the gods of Rome, right? And then he was a pagan himself, but then he claimed to convert to Christianity, right? And then he succeeded in combining paganism and Christianity. You have to know that, right? Paganism means they worship the gods of ancient Rome, right? We're talking about Roman gods. There are so numerous, right? There are so many of gods that the ancient Rome worship. And then we also have Christianity. And Christianity, we know that Christianity only worship God the Father, and also, of course, recognize Jesus as the Savior, as God. And he succeeded. He combined paganism and Christianity, and so he made a new religion. The main god of the ancient Rome was the sun god, and its worship day was Sunday. That's why we got the name in English, Sunday, Sun Day. And you can see right here, Constantine himself set this on the venerable day of the sun. Why? Because the ancient Rome, they worship their god, sun god, on Sunday. Interesting. Very interesting. And this is actually only one of, I can say, numerous changes in Christianity made by the Roman emperor, right? Starting from Constantine, and as time passed by, we can see later the church at that time, gave lots of changes. I'm talking about the words of God. The church, right at that moment, gave or made lots of changes. It has been prophesied beforehand. You can see 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3 and 4. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3 and 4. Don't let anyone deceive you in any way, for that day will not come until the rebellion occurs and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the man doomed to destruction. He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God. So we're talking about Antichrist right here. And when we're talking about the Antichrist, it says right here that the Antichrist, okay, or this kind of power is going to exalt himself, sets himself high or even higher, and he will refer himself as God. And this kind of power dares to change the time. How do I know? Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. And remember, brother and sister, this is not a coincidence. When we talk about how Sabbath has shifted or has changed into Sunday, he will speak against the Most High. If you see Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, this also talks about this power, okay, about the Antichrist. He will speak against the Most High. Who is this Most High? God. And oppress his holy people and try to change what? The set times and the laws. See? So the Antichrist is going to change the time and also the laws. Whose laws? God's holy laws. And the holy people will be delivered into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. We're going to talk about that prophecy about the time, but this is not the right time because we only focus on the change itself in terms of time and the law. Let's go deeper. Let me tell you briefly about the history of the church. All right. And as what I mentioned previously, you can check it out yourself. Don't just believe me, but you have to check it out yourself. You can try to Google it and better try to find unbiased sources. And you can go to encyclopedia and you can find everything right there, right? Long ago, this is very important for us to understand. Long ago, okay, at the time of Jesus and the disciples, apostles, there were no denominations, okay, only Christians, so-called Christians. And these Christians are how people called them, right? They're actually Jews, but people called them Christians, according to the book of Acts. People called them Christians because they believe Jesus is the Christ. Jesus is the Messiah. So that's why people called them Christians. But actually, they were just like other Jews. The difference is that they believe in Jesus, but other Jews, they didn't, right? And up to this day, many Jews don't believe in Jesus. Sad fact. And after some time, as I said, that the Christians were under persecution until the time of 320 something, right? And then after that, and we all know that there is a combination of paganism and Christianity. And allow me to say this, I don't want to offend anyone, but this is the fact. Starting from that moment, and we have the Catholic Church, all right? And so right now we can see the combination of paganism and Christianity. I don't want to offend anyone. I have lots of Catholic friends, but this is the truth. I need to tell you the truth. Because if I don't tell you the truth, God forbids. Anyway, I'm just telling you, starting from that moment, we have the Catholic Church, and that means universal, up to several centuries, and then we have someone named Martin Luther. But before Martin Luther, we have some heroes, I can say, some fathers, I can say, that they try to do something according to the Bible, but the church, silenced them. They were given death penalty. We have John Huss. We have lots, including Martin Luther, just like what I said, right? We have lots of people actually, but then they were silenced by the church. And when Martin Luther came, you all have to know that Martin Luther also was about to be killed. But then Martin Luther miraculously was hidden, right? He was saved, right, by the other king. And so the papacy, or at that time, they could not find Luther to execute him, right? But before that, we had Jerome, John Huss, and some other fathers, I can say, and they all rebelled against the church. Many things that they want to tell the church, but the church just didn't want to listen, and they were executed. And remember, brother and sister, right at that time, it's not easy to speak against the church. When you say something against the church, that's it. You're dead, right? And that's what's happening here. Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. It said, the holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, times and a half a time, meaning the persecution. Wow. You can check encyclopedia. How many people were killed right at the moment up to the time of Martin Luther? So many. And I'm telling the truth, right? Tens of millions of people died in the time of early church until the Middle Age. Many people died because of this power. Let's go to testimonies from the Catholic Church. We're talking about the Catholic Church, and now let's see their testimonies. You may read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday. The scriptures enforce the religious observance of Saturday, a day which we never sanctify, a day which we never keep holy. Catholic Virginian, October 3rd, 1947. Brothers and sisters, this is based on the history. They themselves claim this. For example, nowhere in the Bible do we find that Christ or the apostles ordered that the Sabbath be changed from Saturday to Sunday. No, Christ and the apostles, they didn't change from Saturday to Sunday. We have the commandment of God given to Moses to keep holy the Sabbath day, that is the seventh day of the week, Saturday. Today, most Christians skip Sunday because it has been revealed to us by the church outside the Bible. Peter Jarman, CSSR, The Convert, Catechism of Catholic Doctrine. All the Catholics know how important Catechism is. Question, which is the Sabbath day? Answer, Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question, why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? What is the answer? They themselves say this. We observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. The Catholic Church transferred the observance of Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. Who said that? Was it God? No. They claimed it that it was they themselves who changed it. Arthur R. Creamer, Catholic Church Extension Society, 1975. Regarding the change from the observance of the Jewish Sabbath to the Christian Sunday, I wish to draw your attention to the fact. Now listen, pay attention to this. This is really remarkable, I can say, that Protestants who accept the Bible as the only rule of faith and religion should by all means go back to the observance of the Sabbath. The fact that they do not, but on the contrary, observe the Sunday, stultifies them in the eyes of every thinking man. If you don't know the history, long ago, there was kind of like a big argument, or even like a big war, some kind of war between the Protestants and the Catholics. As I said previously, that the Protestants, they protested against the Catholic Church, and they said that the church did not control them. And so they said that the Catholic Church, they have lots of, how can I say, tradition, because the Catholic Church mixed the paganism and the Christianity. And so they said, we, the Protestants, we do what the Bible says. That's why, if you know sola scriptura, it comes from Martin Luther, the founder of Protestants. However, in here, the Catholic Church says that if you claim that you only follow the Bible, then why you still keep Sunday holy? You are making yourself foolish in front of us. You can see that. You stop the fact that you still keep Sunday holy, it stultifies them in the eyes of every thinking man. It makes you a foolish person in front of us, the Catholics. You can see it. Point number 2. And then he proudly says, we Catholics, we do not accept the Bible as the only rule of faith. He made a confession right here. Besides the Bible, we have the living church, the authority of the church as a rule to guide us. That's why we all know right now, even up to this day, and even until eternity, we all know that the Catholic Church, they have the Pope. And whatever the Pope says, whatever the church says, they're going to do it. And so that's why the Bible is not the only rule of their faith. Right? They admit it. And you can see the last paragraph. It is always somewhat laughable to see the Protestant churches in pulpit and legislation demand the observance of Sunday, of which there is nothing in their Bible. It is so funny for us to see you, Protestants. You claim that you do what the Bible says. You claim that you do only what God says in the scriptures. However, you still do, or you still observe the Sunday keeping. You still keep Sunday holy, whereas actually we cannot find it in the Bible. That kind of Sunday keeping actually comes from us. That's what Peter Kramer said right here. T. Enright, CSSR, in a lecture at Harvard, Kansas, said like this: I have repeatedly offered $1,000. You can imagine in 1884, $1,000, right? Even right now, it's big money. And you can imagine in 1884, it's big money. But he said it publicly. He said to all the Protestants right there, I offered $1,000 to anyone who can prove to me from the Bible alone that I am bound to keep Sunday holy. There is no such law in the Bible. And it is a law of the Holy Catholic Church alone. The Bible says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, but the Catholic Church says, no. By my divine power, I abolish the Sabbath day and command you to keep holy the first day of the week. And lo, the entire civilized world bows down in reverent obedience to the command of the Holy Catholic Church. Clear. The Catholic, they have admitted that they are the ones who were responsible, in this kind of Sunday keeping. Done with the Catholic. How about the Protestants? I have lots of confessions, brother and sister, but because we don't have much time, but I have lots of confessions, even from Indonesian, we call it in here, Gereja Betel, Indonesia. I have the confession of them on the paper saying that, Sabbath is, the real Sabbath is actually on Saturday. But let's go to this. You can see right there, Anglican Episcopal Church, Isaac Williams say, and where are we told in the scriptures that we are to keep the first day at all? We are commanded to keep the seventh, but we are nowhere commanded to keep the first day. The reason why we keep the first day of the week, why is it? It's for the same reason that we observe many other things. Not because the Bible, but because the church has enjoined it. Because the church has suggested that Sunday keeping. From the Baptist Church, to me it seems unaccountable. Listen, this is very interesting. To me it seems strange, inexplainable, that Jesus, during 3 years intercourse with his disciples, often conversing with them upon the Sabbath question. When Jesus lived on this earth, Jesus talks sometime about the Sabbath, right? And answer people about the Sabbath. But Jesus never alluded to any transference of the day. Jesus never said that there would be a transference of the day, meaning the Sabbath keeping is going to be changed into Sunday keeping. Jesus never said that. And even during 40 days of his resurrection life, no such thing was intimated. But you can see right now, nowadays, all churches around the world claim that they are celebrating the resurrection of Jesus. But in here, from the Baptist church, he honestly said that during 40 days of his resurrection life, no such thing was intimated. Of course, I quite well know that Sunday did come into use in early Christian history, but what a pity. Look at this. This is an honest confession. He finally knew the truth. What a pity it comes branded with the mark of paganism and christened with the name of the Sun God. Do you imagine that? Adopted and sanctioned by the papal apostasy and bequeathed as a sacred legacy to Protestantism. In other words, the Catholic has started, and now the Protestants, the world of Christianity, follow papacy. The Christian Protestants and all other denominations, charismatic church, every other denomination, most of us follow the Catholic Church. And the disciples of Christ said the first day of the week is commonly called the Sabbath. And this is a mistake. This is from the disciple of Christ Church. The Sabbath of the Bible was the day just preceding the first day of the week. What is the first day of the week? Sunday. And when is the Sabbath? One day before. Okay, that precedes the first day of the week. The first day of the week is never called the Sabbath anywhere in the entire scriptures. It is also an error to talk about the change of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. There is not in any place in the Bible any intimation of such a change. So they're trying to be honest. And this comes from the disciples of Christ Church. Lutheran. We're talking about Martin Luther before. Look at what Dr. Augustus Nender from Lutheran Church said. The festival of Sunday, like all other festivals, was always only a human ordinance, and it was far from the intention of the apostle. Listen, the apostles, they didn't change it, right? And in here it's also say, far from them. And from the early apostolic church, no such thing happened. No transfer of the laws of the Sabbath to Sunday. But starting from 321, when Emperor Constantine, issued the law, and followed by the establishment of the Catholic Church, which means universal, and so long, time after time, until now, many people worship on Sunday. And now people try to make excuses as if like we are celebrating Jesus' resurrection. Yes, Jesus resurrected on Sunday, but Jesus never said that we have to celebrate Sunday of his resurrection in place of the Sabbath day. Conclusion. The scriptures command us to hold a sacred assembly on Sabbath. However, most churches, starting from the Roman Catholics long ago, followed by most Christians, worship on Sunday instead. Now you, brothers and sisters, you decide for yourself. Are you going to do what God in the scriptures says or what the churches say? As simple as that. Remember, the fourth commandment is as important as the first, second, third, fifth, so on until the 10th commandment. They're all equally important. If I break one of the commandments, that means I break the whole commandments of God. It's your call. Before we end this session, Matthew chapter 15, verse 8 and 9. Be very careful, my friend. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain because their teachings are merely human rules. So are you going to follow God's commandments, or you're going to follow the traditions or what the churches have been telling us? It's your call. I've already told you everything that I know. You can freely try to find out whether it is the truth or not. But my suggestion, be on neutral ground, be unbiased. And when you search the scriptures, make sure that you started with prayer and do not adjust the Bible to our understandings, but on the other way around. We have to adjust our mind, our knowledge to the scriptures, which is the source of all truth. That is the message for tonight. Hopefully, we all can understand that. And it's time for us to start the discussion. If you have any insights or any questions, feel free to do that. Because anyway, tonight's topic is actually the response to what some of us actually asked me last week.